Good morning, and welcome back to Supernaturalist, where we discuss the lore, legends, and creatures of our favorite show, Supernatural. Today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 7 of Supernatural, titled Fresh Blood. And this episode gives us vampires, yes, but more importantly, it gives us one of the show's best examples of what happens when someone hates monsters so much that they become one long before the supernatural part ever kicks in. This isn't just a vampire episode. This is Gordon Walker episode. And that means it's about obsession, revenge, moral blindness, and that very dangerous thing that happens when a hunter decides he is always right. We also get Bella. And honestly, Bella Talbot always brings a very specific flavor to an episode. She's clever, stylish, morally slippery, and usually about 3 steps ahead of everyone until someone points a gun at her face. So today we're keeping this focused on the creatures, the lore, Bella's involvement, and what this episode is really doing underneath all the blood and fangs. So let's start with Bella. The episode opens with her walking to her car, only to realize Gordon is behind her. Now, she doesn't recognize him right away, but once he says who he is, she knows enough to understand that this is not a man she should underestimate. Gordon wants Sam and Dean. In reality, he wants Sam. Bella, being Bella, isn't about to hand over information for free. Even with a gun in her face, she negotiates. She knows Gordon isn't going to shoot her because he needs something from her. Gordon offers her $3,000, and she basically gives him the emotional equivalent of, "That's cute, but no." But then she notices the mojo bag on his belt, and that's Bella's language. It's not loyalty, not morality, not even friendship. She she likes objects, value, leverage, anything that she can get for a pretty penny. She agrees to trade the Winchesters' location for that mojo bag, and just like that, she sells them out because, well, she's Bella. Now, I know Bella is divisive, but I actually think this scene is a perfect example of why she works as a character. She's not pretending to be noble. She doesn't dress betrayal up as anything other than survival and profit. She sees the world as a marketplace, and unfortunately for Sam and Dean, their location has a price. Later, Dean figures out that Bella's random phone call wasn't random at all. She was getting their location for Gordon. When he calls her back, he's furious. He's not charming Dean. He's not sarcastic Dean. This is cold, dangerous Dean. And Bella, for once, sounds like she knows she may have miscalculated. But she does try to make it right, sort of. She calls back with Gordon's location and says she got it from a talking board. But the message from the other side isn't comforting at all. It's basically leave town, run like hell, and do not under any circumstance go after Gordon. Which, of course, means the Winchesters immediately go after Gordon. Because if the spirits say run, Sam and Dean here, sounds like a plan. Let's do the opposite. Typical Winchesters. Gotta love them. Now, let's talk about the main creature of the episode, vampires. The vampires in Supernatural aren't elegant, they're not romantic, they're not candlelit creatures writing poetry in castles. These are actual predators. Their teeth are jagged and animalistic. Their hunger is ugly. Their attacks are messy. They can look human, but when the hunger hits, the mask drops fast. One of the most important pieces of vampire lore in this episode is how someone turns. In Supernatural, a vampire bite alone doesn't transform you. You become a vampire by ingesting vampire blood. That detail matters here because the episode shows us people being turned without their consent. Lucy, the woman Sam and Dean capture, has no idea what happened to her. She thinks someone slipped her a drug at the club. She's confused and terrified. She's hungry and completely overwhelmed by what her body is doing. She can hear blood pumping a block away. The sun hurts her skin, and she can't make the hunger stop. And that's horrifying because Lucy isn't evil. She's actually a victim. That's something Supernatural does really well when it wants to. It reminds us that becoming dangerous and being guilty aren't always the same thing. And Sam and Dean know what Lucy is now, and they know what she could do and what she could become. But killing her still feels heavy because she didn't choose any of it. The vampire responsible is Dixon, and he's interesting because he's not just turning people at random. He's trying to rebuild his family. His kind is dying out and he wants to create more vampires to survive. Now, that doesn't make what he does okay, not even a little bit. He's drugging people with vampire blood and stealing their humanity. But this show gives him just enough sadness and loneliness that he feels more layered than a simple monster of the week villain. He's still a monster, but he's a lonely monster. And then there's Gordon. Gordon Walker has always been one of the scariest kinds of hunters because he believes his own righteousness. He's so convinced that Sam is evil, so sure that killing him would be some great holy mission, that he can't see the damage he's doing everywhere else. Gordon hates monsters. He hates vampires particularly. And he hates anything that falls outside his very narrow idea of human and good. So, what does this episode do? It turns Gordon into a vampire. And honestly, that's perfect supernatural punishment for Gordon. He becomes the very thing he despises. But instead of making him question himself, it makes him even more dangerous. And that's the key. Gordon doesn't become terrifying because he grows fangs. He was already terrifying. The vampire blood just gives him more power. And once he's turned, he can feel that hunger. He can hear the blood. He tries to fight it at first, but he ends up giving in. Then he goes to Kubrick, who is still the one person who's loyal to him, and he tells Kubrick he has to kill him. But not yet. First, Gordon wants to kill Sam Winchester. That's his entire goal. That's his only reason for being. And that tells us everything we need to know. Even after being turned, even after becoming the creature he has built his life around destroying, Gordon's obsession with Sam is still the most important thing to him. It's not protecting innocent people. It's not stopping himself. It's not asking whether he was wrong. It's just Sam and killing Sam. And that's why Gordon's story ends the way it does. He kills Kubrick, then sets a trap for Sam and Dean. He uses a young woman as bait. He turns her too, because at this point, Gordon's morality is long gone, if it was ever there to begin with in the first place. The final confrontation is brutal. Sam is trapped in the dark with Gordon, and Gordon taunts him with the idea that killing him will be one of his last good deeds. But Sam being Sam, he fights back as hard as he can. And in one of the most unforgettable kills of early seasons, Sam uses razor wire to decapitate Gordon. It's a violent kill. It's shocking and it's very supernatural. But it also feels inevitable. Now, before I continue with the rest of the podcast, if you haven't seen this episode, you need to know that Dixon is the one who captured Gordon, took him to his nest, and turned him. He didn't just, you know, get slipped a Mickey. He didn't, he didn't accidentally get blood in his mouth. Dixon turned him. Now back to the story. Gordon spent a long time hunting Sam, and he's become incapable of seeing Sam as a person. He saw a thing, a threat, a mission. And once you reduce someone to a mission or a thing, you can justify pretty much anything. That, to me, is the real creature of Fresh Blood. It's the real story behind all of this. Yes, the vampires are literal monsters, but Gordon is the warning. And when he gets turned, he's a worse monster. Because the hatred can turn you into something monstrous long before the fangs show up. Now, we also need to talk about Sam and Dean, because this episode takes place during Dean's final year before his deal comes due. Dean is still doing what Dean does when he's scared. He jokes, he acts reckless, and he pretends none of it matters because in his mind, he's already dead anyway. But Sam sees through the act. There's a really beautiful moment where Sam finally calls Dean out and tells him to stop acting like he isn't terrified. Sam knows him too well. Dean is his big brother. Sam has looked up to him since he was 4 years old. He knows Dean's tells. He knows when the bravado is just fear wearing a leather jacket. And what Sam really wants is simple. He wants his brother back. Not the guy who's pretending he has nothing to lose. His brother. That's why the final scene hits so hard. After everything with Gordon, after the vampires, after the blood and the violence, Dean teaches Sam how to work on the Impala. He shows him parts, he hands him the wrench, he tells Sam he needs to know these things down the line. And that's Dean saying everything he can't say out loud. I love you, I'm scared, I'm not going to be here. I need you to be okay. The Impala has always been more than a car. It's been their home and their family. It's John. It's Dean. It's every mile they spent together. So Dean letting Sam under the hood is a huge deal. It's not just an auto shop lesson. This is legacy. So when we look at the creatures in Fresh Blood, we're looking at vampires, yes, but we're also looking at transformation. Lucy is transformed against her will. Dixon is transformed by loneliness. Gordon is transformed by hatred. And Dean is being transformed by fear. Sam, well, he's being forced to grow into a future he does not want to imagine. That's why this episode really, really works. It gives us blood and fangs, but underneath that, it's about what changes us and what we become when we're scared. Now it's time for fun facts and behind the scenes info. Fresh Blood is season 3, episode 7 of Supernatural, and it originally aired on November 15th, 2007. This episode was written by Sarah Gamble and directed by Kim Manners. Rest in peace, sir. That makes sense because this episode has both strong emotional character work and some really intense horror visuals. This is also Gordon Walker's final appearance on the series. Sterling K. Brown gives Gordon such intensity that even when the character is completely wrong, you understand why he's dangerous. He believes every word he says. Mercedes McNabb plays Lucy. I love her. She's adorable. She's the newly turned vampire. And vampire fans might recognize her from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, where she played Harmony Kendall. So this wasn't her first trip into vampire territory. The episode gives us a very clear reminder of supernatural vampire lore. The bite doesn't automatically turn someone. The person has to ingest vampire blood. Now, dead man's blood is one of the major vampire weaknesses in the series. It doesn't normally kill them outright, but it weakens them and incapacitates them for a while, which gives hunters an advantage to kind of take them down or hold them. Now, the standard hunter method for killing vampires is in Supernatural, as we all know, is decapitation. That's why machetes and blades show up so often in vampire hunts. Now, Gordon's death by razor wire is one of the more memorable vampire kills in early seasons. It's pretty gruesome, but it also feels very personal because Sam is the one who finally ends Gordon's hunt. Dixon, he is played by Matthew Humphries. Unfortunately, this character doesn't get a lot of screen time, but he adds an interesting layer to the vampire story because his motive is tied to loneliness and survival, not just bloodlust. He seems to have emotions, which most vampires don't. And the final Impala scene matters because Dean rarely lets Sam touch the car, let alone work under the hood. So when Dean teaches him, it's not just practical, it's emotional. He's trying to prepare Sam for a possible future without him. And now for behind the scenes. The vampire teeth in Supernatural were designed to feel more predatory than romantic, like vampires previously and going forward. They're not smooth teeth, they're not pretty fangs, they look sharp, jagged, and animal-like, which really fits the show's grittier version of vampire lore. Gordon's final death scene used a mix of practical effects and visual effects to create the razor wire decapitation. That's part of why it feels so brutal and physical. This episode aired during season 3, which was shortened because of the 2007 writer's strike. So every episode in the season had to carry a lot of story weight, especially with Dean's deal ticking down in the background. And Bella's role in the episode is a great example of how the writers used her as a chaos character. She doesn't need to be the main villain to cause serious damage. She's Bella. She's chaos in a beautiful woman. She just has to make one selfish deal at exactly the wrong time. The emotional ending with the Impala is one of those classic supernatural quiet moments. There's no big speech, there's no dramatic confession. It's just Dean handing Sam a wrench and showing him how to keep going. And that's it for today's episode of Supernaturalist. Fresh Blood gives us vampires, betrayal, Bella being Bella, Gordon's final downfall, and one of those painful Winchester brother moments that sneaks in after all the bloodshed. The creatures may be vampires, but the real warning is this. If hatred becomes your whole identity, you might become a monster long before anyone has to turn you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Supernaturalist. Until next time, keep the salt close, keep your instincts sharper than a machete, and remember, if a stranger at a club offers you a mysterious red drink, maybe just order water. And please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and share this with the other supernatural lovers. Thanks again, and have a great weekend.